We have all felt like underdogs, but how many of us think we should write a book about it? Well, Vedika Dayal did. So she's here talking to us about her book called Thinking Outside the Odds. This book is about all women who were underdogs and now became top dogs. So with that, I want to welcome Vedika Dayal. Vedika, welcome to Soul Talks with Alka.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alka. It's great to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me first, what do you do? Are you in college?
Yeah, I'm a college student. I'm currently at Berkeley, but home right now in New Jersey.
Nice. So you are from Edison, New Jersey.
Mhm.
Okay. And so tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I've always felt like the underdog a little bit. I know you can't see me right now, but I'm 4'10". So I was always, the shortest person growing up in my school. And I think that because of that, I always had a lack of confidence. And then I also always felt a little bit undermined because of it, because I was so much smaller than everyone around me. And so, thinking about this and growing up feeling like the underdog, I started to notice this discrepancy that I was experiencing where sometimes people would say, I don't think you can do that. And I would feel really fired up by it. And I would feel like, I want to prove them wrong. But sometimes, they would say, oh, you can't do this. And I would say, oh, maybe I can. And it would just kind of get to my head. And so I always had this question in the back of my mind, like, is there a way that I can always channel that first situation of feeling fired up by it and feeling like I want to prove them wrong?
Nice.
And, I always had that question, but I never really got to answering it until, the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden, I was just at home a lot with myself and thinking about what I didn't know about the world. And one of them was this question, and I kept coming back to it. And eventually, I started to kind of try to seek the answers to it by talking to some of the entrepreneurs and innovators who have been in the same situation. And that's kind of led me here.
But what makes you think about even doing that, right? What
Mhm.
makes you think about interviewing an entrepreneur or thinking about, you know what, this is what I want to write about? What was your motivation?
Mhm. I think that for me, it was the fact that there was no one answering that question. And I
Mm,
am such a curious person, so if you give me a question and I can't find the answer, I will go out and, find someone that has that answer. And so when I couldn't figure out if there was anything I could do about this situation, and, I've always been really ambitious, so I've always wanted to do better and do well. And there was no one that was able to give me the answers that I was looking for. And so I just went out and I tried to find the people that did have the answers.
wow. So is that a trait that you've always had? Like, or is that something that has been inculcated through school or through the teachers or through your environment? Or what is just nature?
I don't really know, but I think that I just hate this feeling of not knowing things. I
Mm.
hate that feeling where, there's something that I want and I can't get it. And I'm sure everyone can relate where everyone wants what they want and everyone wants to go after that. And so I think that just growing up, that's always been something that's mattered a lot to me, where if I want something, I want to find a way to go get it.
Nice, very nice. So let's talk about this book. Talk to us about the people who you've interviewed in the book.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone that I've interviewed has in some way come from a very rocky path.
Hmm.
So, maybe they grew up in poverty. Maybe, they're women and they've experienced a lot of sexism. Maybe they're people of color who have experienced racism. And in some way, they've had this very rocky path. And they all attribute that to their success. They're all innovators, they're all entrepreneurs, creators. They've built something new in the world. And when they look at whatever they've brought to us, brought to the world, their company, their invention, whatever it might be, they always say, oh, it's because I struggled that I was able to create that. And that's the common thread that brings them all together.
That's awesome. It's kind of like Soul Talks with Alka, just in a paperback.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
I copied your idea a little bit.
that's awesome. That's awesome. But when you're going to interview these people, right? You're a kid in college. How are they taking you seriously when you call them saying, "Listen, I'm writing a book and I want to interview you." How was that?
Yeah, and for sure, like the first few times I reached out to people, I got silence. There was
Mm.
no response. There was not even like a kind no. And it's because people aren't used to seeing a college student writing a book.
Right.
But for me, I think the two things that helped me was one, persistence. I would just go after people and keep asking until I got a response. And then the second thing was that I want to help them inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so I know that a lot of these people have been in that place where they've kind of looked at their dreams and said, I don't know if that's possible for me. And because of that, I am able to go to them and say, hey, this is a way for you to reach other people who are in that situation that you were in maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
That's
And you
awesome.
can speak to them. And
That's
that's what I try
awesome.
to play to. Yeah, thank
That
you.
that that is so cool.
Thanks.
And so was it easier after you got your fifth yes?
Yes, it definitely was, where
Yeah,
I was able to say, that I'm not only a college student, but I'm a college student who has already talked to these many people. And so
right.
I would love for you to be, the sixth one or the seventh one. And I
Nice.
think that proof of concept helps a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For when you are writing this, so did you interview them? Did you go meet them on site? Because during the pandemic, you can't really meet them face to face. So
Mhm.
all of it is Zoom interviews,
Yeah, yeah, no.
right?
So I was doing all Zoom interviews, but I think that made people more willing to connect with me too, because all of a sudden we're in this place where we're all kind of humbled by it.
Yeah,
However much money you're making a year, we're all in the same place where we're stuck at home, and I
right.
think that brings everyone to the same level, and it also creates this feeling of wanting to help and wanting to make a difference in some way. And so
Yes,
I think that made people a lot more willing to just sit down and talk to me.
that's awesome. So for students who are, sitting there and saying, what we have a dream, we don't know what to do with our dream, we don't know what to do with our passion, and we somebody's going to say no because not every dream is just realized so easily, right? What is it that you would say to those kids
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
motivate them?
I would say to embrace that uncertainty and to embrace that feeling of not knowing what's next, because that's your greatest strength, where that gives you so much freedom to now try to figure out what you want from life and try to explore your dreams. And in a sense, this society having maybe a lower expectation for you, maybe because you're just a kid or maybe because you've struggled in some way, that gives you so much more space to prove them wrong and to really exceed that expectation. And so I think it's a really exciting place to be. And I would just say to embrace that.
That's awesome. So now when you start a book, and I'm going from an achievement of yours to what you can tell a child, and then achievement of yours to what you can, give a lesson to your peers and to the kids who are younger than you. When your book gets published, how are you going to promote that book? Like, have you thought through a business plan for the book?
I would say I really have not. To me
Okay.
right now, what matters to me is the message.
Yeah.
And I've just noticed that when I tell people about the book, they connect and they resonate and they feel inspired in some way. And my
Awesome.
hope is that, when I publish it and I just tell people about it, there's this excitement that comes to them and that they'll be able to spread it. And to me, really, what will make this book successful is that one person reads it and in some way they feel changed, even in some small way. They adopt a new habit or a new routine, or they just think about their life in a slightly different way. For me, it's just about that one person, and that would make it all worth it.
My God,
Uh,
this is really like Soul Talks with Alka. Because that's all we want is one difference at a time. So this
I
is
know.
really like that. That's pretty
We're like the
awesome.
same person.
Yeah, that's great. So again, were you an AP honor student? Were you like an honor student? Were you in all AP classes?
Yes, I was. But I
Okay.
would say that I feel that kind of hindered my journey in some way, because
Okay.
I think when you're always focused on academic achievement, you kind of develop this attitude where you want to do things to get results out of them. And I think that coming into college, that was one of the things that I was trying to unlearn, is to do things without expecting anything and just to do things for fun. Sometimes if you email someone who's really high up there, there's not much that you can really get out of it. It's not like they're going to give you a job or something. And
Right.
sometimes you're just doing it to have a good conversation.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of unlearn that attitude of just doing things to get results and instead just doing things to explore and just to have fun and to learn something new.
That's awesome. So I had emailed Oprah 161 times because I had this idea. Because when you're young, you don't think of rejection so much, right?
Mhm.
But as you get older, you start to think of rejection and you start to think of, oh my God, my ego, everything gets hurt. But when you're young, these things are not so important.
Mhm.
So I think it's good when you're having fun and you're dreaming, you're okay to reach out to the top and say, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
dare to dream. It's okay.
Exactly. And it's funny because my editor, my first editor at least, he was like an older man in his 60s, and he was reading, my draft, and he mentioned the same thing where he was saying, I feel that now I'm thinking so much about risk taking and I'm so cautious about everything, but I think in your book I felt this sense of energy and that it made me want to just do something crazy, to take a risk. And I thought that that's really awesome. And I definitely want, wherever age you are, I hope that people feel that energy when they're reading the book.
That's awesome. So you already made a difference. You made a difference to your editor. So your one person goal is accomplished.
I know. So I basically don't even need to write the book.
No, but that's what it is, right? That's your goal. And it's amazing once you start out on an endeavor, how the universe aligns itself to help you as long as you can get out of your own way.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. A lot of times, we perceive all these barriers around us, but in reality, we are the barrier and we are creating these blocks in our mind. And when we overcome that, there's so much magic that can happen.
Absolutely. And were your parents always supportive?
My parents have always been supportive, but I think that when I came downstairs one day and I was like, Mom, I'm going to write a book, my mom was like, what? Like, I think that everyone has that
What?
gut reaction of like, what? Like, what are you saying? But
Yeah.
like, honestly, my parents have always been my greatest supporters, and they've always been, they always have that gut reaction of what, but even then they trust me to go along on the journey. And so they're always there, and like, it'll be 4 a.m. and I'm going to be sitting there writing, and my mom will wake up and she'll be like, what are you doing? But, if she feels that I'm tired and I'm still excited to write, she'll go down and make me hot chocolate or coffee. And so in that sense, my mom has always been there to support me. My dad has always been there to support me, and I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. What would be your advice for the parents for children? Like if they want to start something crazy like that, where the parents have this reaction like, what? What are you doing now? Like,
Yeah.
what would your advice be to them?
I would say to trust them and to let them, if you are scared of your child failing, let them experience that. Because I think that the reason parents have that gut reaction of like, what are you saying? Is because they want to protect you from failure. They don't want you to experience that feeling of trying something and not being able to do it. But I think that there's so much that you learn from that experience, and you never know when your child might surprise you, come out with a book on the other end, or whatever their crazy project might be.
Yeah, that's awesome. If a child is getting the resistance from their parents or from their environment, how do you suggest that they still keep their dreams intact and pursue them?
I would say to do it in a small way and show the people around you that you were able to do it. So, for example, when I was writing the book, the first thing I did was just write a whole chapter and show it to my mom. My mom was like, I remember like my mom was reading it that day and she was like, this is like a real chapter. Like there was that feeling of legitimacy that it brings. And so I think that whatever your project might be, just doing it in a very small way and just doing that, pushing through that initial resistance. Because once you start, it's so much easier to continue. And it's just that initial starting point that's so hard to get through. And I remember even in 5th grade, I remember I went to my mom one day and I was like, Mom, I'm going to make a movie. And my mom was like, what? Like, are you okay? But I was so determined and I was like, I'm going to make a movie. And so the first thing that I did was I sent out audition forms to everyone in my class. And once my mom saw this form with like a legal signature that I required from my actors and actresses, I think that she also felt that sense of legitimacy. And so in whatever crazy project that I decide to try out, I think that doing that, getting through that initial push is really important.
That's awesome. So you've always been like a what kind of kid?
Yeah, I think I enjoy a little bit of that reaction. And when I say something and someone says, "What? Are you crazy?" I think that that means you're on the right track.
Oh, that is such a pearl because if the world isn't shocked by what you want to do, it's just normal.
Yeah, it's not big enough.
Yeah, it's not big enough. So Vedika have you done a movie?
So I did in 5th grade. Well, it was a 5th grade movie, so it was
Okay.
like a 50-minute video.
Okay.
But I edited it, I directed it, I wrote the script. And it ended up being, it was a 50-minute horrible video now when I look back on it, but it was a 50-minute video and I called it a movie.
You needed to build your confidence to now get to think outside the odds,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And I
this is
think that, yeah, I think those little wins just really helped.
that's awesome. What would be your final message for your peers, for kids, for people who are struggling to make their dream come true?
I would say I would go back to embrace being the underdog. And I would encourage you to think about what are the things that are causing you to struggle? What are the things that are causing you to question yourself? And are they even real barriers? Are they things that you can't overcome? And are they things that you can use to your advantage in some way? And thinking about it like that, thinking about, oh, there's this bad negative obstacle in my life. Is there a way that I can use that? Is there a way that I can make that something big? And you need lemons to make lemonade. So I would say that you're on the right track. And the fact that you're struggling means your dream is big enough. And so I would just say to be excited about it and to go for it.
Wow, this is awesome. I'm so proud of you. This is awesome. I wish you the best of luck. I think the book is going to be successful. Your reason is the right reason. I wish you the best of luck in this book.
Thank
You so much, Vedika. Thank you for coming on Soul Talks with Alka. Thank you for writing about Soul Talks with Alka, even though you didn't know anything about Soul Talks with Alka.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
I feel like
you.
we're the same person. So
I know. It seems like that.
Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you. And have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you, Vedika.
Thank you.
Thank you.